Hello and welcome to another episode of the Lebenspraxis Podcast. The Lebenspraxis Podcast is the podcast where we talk about everything that concerns the Lebenspraxis, which is a very holistic approach. We don't limit ourselves here in what we are talking about. Actually, what I'm talking about, I'm not sure why I say we, because up to this point I haven't published an episode yet where I talk with another person, although there is something recorded together with Mariana, and then it would be true that we are talking about things here. Anyway, this is the first episode since the first one where I also do a visual recording where I film myself talking here. I stopped after the first episode on the one hand because I felt if I'm cutting a lot, then it looks super weird on the video. That was one thing. Another thing is that I don't really feel video is very necessary, but today I felt, okay, why not? We can also, if you want to see a video, you now have a video of it. Why not? The option is there. And the third thing was that I'm not always recording in a place where it's so easy to set up a camera or where I want to carry the camera equipment. Yeah. Some of the episodes I just recorded, let's say, in all kinds of places. Like one episode I recorded in the bottom of the ocean. One episode I recorded at the North Pole. Another one on Mars. So these are all places where it's a bit more difficult to carry the camera equipment because partly it can be because of gravitational problems, that the camera might float away on Mars, for example, or I have no idea how the gravity on Mars is, or in the bottom of the ocean I need to get an extra thing because of the pressure and so on. So it was easy just to do the audio in these more complicated places. But now I am here in my office. I'm a bit hesitant to say office because it is my office, but let's say it's a bit of a improvised solution, let's say. Okay. Anyway, today I want to talk about loneliness. I want to talk about loneliness because I feel it's one major topic in our society. And there is a weird thing happening in our society. What is this weird thing? The weird thing is that we are so connected. We have this unlimited connectivity through things like the internet or cell phones and so on. It's very, very easy to reach other people. But on the other hand, we might feel very lonely in our society. And apparently there are studies that 16% of Germans regularly feel lonely. And I actually think that if people are going a bit deeper into their feeling, then this percentage would even rise up. I have the feeling. Yeah, because it sounds a bit weird, but I feel like sometimes people don't even realize that they feel lonely or that they are lonely. And I would say that I realize it's a bit not so cheering up what I say, but doesn't matter. Yeah, you need to deal with it. Because if you compare it to the natural life, the life how we used to live, who knows, yeah. But what do we imagine if we imagine how human beings used to live? No, in this hunter-gatherer tribes, yeah, bands of maybe up to 100, 150 people. At some point, then we created cities, and then many more people came together. For example, in Uruk, one of the first cities where Gilgamesh built the wall around Uruk. And weirdly enough, if we are more people, then what happens is that loneliness might increase. And one thing that is happening, and I will come to this later again, is the separation of work, home, and recreational activities. I will come to this in a moment. But first, I want to say something that I found very interesting when it came up in my mind when I realized this, is that the reasons for loneliness are very similar to the reasons of unproductivity, of you could say lack of depth in your life, because it's also something that people might feel, or at least something that I talk about in this podcast. So I just project that people feel this, so it makes sense that I talk about this. Yeah. And the three key points here are Unverbindlichkeit, unfortunately, because English is such a underdeveloped language. Yes, I allow myself to say these things that you're actually not allowed to say as a German, to say that the German language is very good. Yeah, this is not really what we do, we Germans. We are very modest. We are very modest now. But it is a bit annoying that in English sometimes really no equivalent word. Unverbindlichkeit, it means that you're not bound to things. So if you make a date with someone, unverbindlich, it means that it's not really fixed. It's not really fixed, the date. Or actually something where you would say this is if a company says, okay, our product, we would sell it at this price. Yeah, they tell the supermarkets we would sell it at this price. And this is called an unverbindliche Preisempfehlung. So a non-binding price recommendation. Yeah, non-binding price recommendation. Unverbindliche Preisempfehlung. So now you learned a new German phrase. Unverbindliche Preisempfehlung. So this is one problem. Unverbindlichkeit, non-binding. Let's translate it like this. The second, maybe I use the word absence. Let's look at my notes, actually, what German, for the Germans, Abwesenheit, absence. I'm also not so happy with the English word, but absence, actually it's okay. Absence. So what does that mean? It means that you're not there. Yeah, absence of things, or absence of people, or absence of your mind. We will come to this in a moment. And the third thing is looking for better options. So we have this non-binding. People are not binding themselves. I already talked about this in one episode where I talked about relationships, that people don't bind themselves to people. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. I'm over-exaggerating, but some people don't bind themselves in relationships. Okay, it used to that you find someone and then you stayed with him together when you're 20 for the rest of your life. Probably it was not true, but it's not so much happening today, probably, as before. Yeah, I feel, at least, because I know many people that seem to be a bit afraid of binding themselves to a person, and at the same time looking always for a better option. And this is the same time in practicing. This is the same time in the same thing in productivity. If you want to do something, you need to like connect yourself to it. You need to be very say, okay, this is what I'm doing. Then you need to be there, invest your time. And then you need to stop looking for better options, because it makes sense, obviously, to look for better ways to do things and blah, 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 blah. But if you're caught up into this, and there is this thing that you can get into the cycle of trying to optimize something without ever doing it. Yeah, you just think about how do I optimize and how do I do it and but then actually you never do the thing. Okay, so you at some point need to, I mean, it's okay to look for better options, like I said. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. But to continuously look for better options doesn't make much sense, because it takes you out of the moment. It makes you absent from the moment. So we have non-biting, absence, and looking for better options. That's a problem. That's a problem when it comes to putting one stone on top of each other. Yeah, one theme that I'm talking about, putting one stone on top of each other instead of putting the stones somewhere in space, but then actually they end up you end up with a house in the end if you put stones on top of each other. And it's the same in relationships. Yeah, you have your people that you know, but then and he has a different view than me on this, and blah 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 blah. And indeed, sometimes you're surrounded with people that are a bit boring, or you don't really connect with. True. That's the case. But there are options and there are ways to get into other communities as well. You just have to do it. And then at some point you have to decide. And you, or not yet, you have to, but you have to. Let's say it like this, very strict. You have to. You have to decide and stay with something. Okay, one example that comes up in my mind is maybe you know that this year I do the group training in Berlin. I do it for free. I don't charge money for it. People can give money, blah, blah, blah. But I don't charge something. People can just come. So, but some people come, and some people tell me, I always come on Tuesday because on Thursday and on Friday I always go to these other things. And I think, that's a bit weird. Like, why are you not committing to one thing? You know, why are you trying to do several things, especially if it's all training? You know, they say, and then I go to this yoga here and something else there. Yeah, I mean, it's something else when you say, okay, I'm doing movement, like I do movement, I want to move. Yeah, I didn't want to say movement practice for whatever reason. I didn't want to say it, but I want to move and I also want to play the piano. So my piano teacher has only time for me. I have only time on Friday at the same time when the training is. So I have to decide, and I want to do both. And all right, okay, fair enough. But to do two things that are very similar to each other, for me, that doesn't make much sense if it's in that sense connected to community. Because my group training, it's not just a thing where you go and then you disappear again. No, it's a possibility to be part of a community actually, where there is training 3 times a week. And if you invest yourself into this, and also look at my video about the free rider problem, it's called. Yes, and there I talk about this. So, like, it doesn't make sense to invest yourself in that sense in 2 communities, no? Like, you have your yoga community and you have this community of people that do this general movement practice, and so on and so forth. Just stay with one community. I mean, and if you, after some time, you feel it's not for you, then just go somewhere else. But it makes sense to really decide and stay somewhere, because only like this, only if there's not Unverbindlichkeit, but Verbindlichkeit, like binding, if you bind yourself to something, if you say, I'm committing and I'm coming all the time, like not just once a week or once every 2 weeks, but more regular, then something will happen also. And I'm teaching this group training for many years, like group trainings in Berlin. I teach for 13 years actually already. So I know what it does when people are really when people are really committing themselves. Yeah, what sort of friendships are created, deeper connections, and so on and so forth. And that the opposite happens if you're not committing yourself, but if sometimes you go there and sometimes you go there, and blah, 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 blah. Actually, next year, I will do it again like this. There will be more commitment asked from me. Because I realized also, okay, if I keep it open like this, some people can be a bit too dumb to understand this, yeah? As apparently their life experience is not enough to understand this simple thing that if you commit yourself to something, then it creates the possibility for depth. Yeah. So don't go to 3 different trainings. Go to one training and that's it. And if after 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, or 20 years you decide to go somewhere else, okay, fair enough. Yeah. But don't go to several things at the same time that have the same topic. It just makes you just stay at the surface. And I recently also, it recently happened again. I asked, like someone told me, yeah, he's training in this other city, like he was a guest and she's training in the other city. And then there's several people like doing similar but a bit different training things. And he said, yeah, he's like going to all of them. And I felt, yeah, okay, fair enough. Like it's interesting to see the different approaches. But on the other hand, that, I don't know, just sounds like I asked myself why, I asked myself why what's the thing? Like why is there a problem in committing to something? Is this something bad? Is this something bad nowadays? Like, are you weak when you do this? When you commit yourself to something, when you commit yourself to a person, or when you commit yourself to a group or something like this? It seems to be from some people a bit of a fear or disgust of this. But then, as I said, like you obviously, you can have this fusion thing where you then in you like this, all these different things that you see that comes together and so on and so forth. But at least in my experience, the depth of things I discover always after some time, and not when I go sometimes here and there. Like where I feel there I went more into depth is the things where I committed myself and where I go for several years already and blah, 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 and still are also after several years still seen that there are new things and so on. So in that sense, I would say that people make themselves lonely also. Yeah, because one thing is the society, like how it's made, and let's talk about it in a moment. But another thing is, that people are just creating this life of loneliness because they are not connecting themselves to other people. And I find it very interesting how the internet seems to play a bit of a role in this as well, because what you can do in the internet, actually, you are in a place and let's say you're in your little village and you don't really like the other villagers. Yeah. They have different interests from you. Okay, you like dragons or something like this, and no one else likes dragons. So then you go into the internet and you find the dragon community. Okay, now great. Like we are all into dragons in our community. That's cool that you can find something where people have similar interests. No, like for me, that was definitely also something very important. Like through the internet, I found people that were also interested in parkour, or I connect with people that are interested in the things that I am, blah, 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 blah. But what I always did is then actually meeting people and making real relationships with people. Obviously not with everyone, but with enough people so there is real connections. And then I can have the stuff in the internet where there is a healthy balance in between the two, in between the people that I communicate with and the people that I have in front of me. What would be definitely not a healthy thing is if you are now just sitting there in front of your computer in your dark room and you're just communicating with people about dragons. Yeah, and the options will become probably more in the future about doing this, because there is this, how's it called? Virtual reality thing. Like there's this metaverse thing. If you watch a video about this, like I watched some videos, on YouTube where people go into this metaverse and it's like, it looks super ridiculous. Come on, like you're all these weird figures and the hands are like floating off the body. They're not really connected. And it's the same, like there was this Second Life thing, or The Sims, this computer game, The Sims. I always thought, like, why are people playing this? Like this is the most boring computer game. There's nothing, like there's no explosions, there's no heroes, there's no you're not conquering the world or something like this, or discovering a murderer of a murder case, or like there's nothing happening. Basically there's nothing happening in The Sims. And the same, like there's this Second Life, or I'm not sure if it still exists, but it also had this terrible graphics. And like, how can you, I mean, the graphics of real life are quite more intense. Like, how can you spend your time with this? It's so ugly. Yeah, but people are doing it. And let's see if it will become more with this metaverse thing, where apparently then we should all, I don't know, do our Zoom meetings. Instead of Zoom meetings, we meet in the metaverse and we do some, I don't know what we do there, in this let's say, new world where people come up with all sorts of things constantly and throw them out, like all sorts of new words, for interaction or roles and blah 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 blah. It reminds me of, there seems to be a thing now in German to not say anymore Bedeutung or Bestimmung. That's the actually word, Bestimmung, but purpose, like the English word. That's the German equivalent, Bestimmung. And I always need to remember, how I remember how to translate it, because in Matrix Reloaded, their Agent Smith says this all the time, purpose. And then I know that in the German one, he says Bestimmung. This is how I remember, because this word like Bedeutung, which is meaning, and Bestimmung, they are very close to each other. But for some reason in the, let's say, super 21st century work community now, companies in Germany, they don't have a Bestimmung, they have a purpose. All right, okay, fair enough, whatever. Like, I don't understand why they do this Denglish, we call it, like English with Deutsch with German, Denglish. Okay, or you can all do your weird stuff. But it's a problem if people disappear in the internet. Obviously, I think that's clear for everyone that has his senses together. And there are interesting phenomena happening. For example, what is clear for everyone, that there are these people and they just disappear and it's very hard to get to them. But there are also much lighter options of that. There is this phenomenon of study with me. And it was funny because my friend Sasha, he said, as a joke, okay, I would like to, just stream 8 hours how I sit here in the computer. Because, like he said it with an intention that, that's pretty boring. No one would ever watch this. But then I said to Sasha, actually, no, that's a thing. That's a thing to stream how you're just working on the computer. Like, people love it. And I showed him that there's this phenomenon where it's mainly called study with me, like not work with me, but I think the main thing is study with me. And people just stream how they study. Sometimes the camera can be a bit further away, so you see the person sitting at the desk. Or I also saw one thing where you just see the desk and you just see the hands of the person, not even the face or something like this. You don't know how the person looks like. You just see that there's lots of pieces of paper and a computer and so on. And this has lots of views, like 12 million views have some of these 3-hour videos where basically nothing is happening. There's just, okay, sometimes there's a break and then you can have a break with the person. But it's just the person streaming, how they're working. Yeah, maybe I should also do it. I also work here. So maybe feel inspired as well. But I also found that, I mean, it's cool, no? That's nice. Like, okay, you're at home alone. Yeah. And then you just switch this on YouTube, and there's someone else also there, and there's a chat, and people chat a bit. But why are you not just meeting with someone and starting with someone together? What's the thing? Isn't that the real option to do that? Study with someone together in person? That's even more powerful, no? Because if then you're slacking off, then a person can say, hey, why are you eating a third ice cream here? We are studying. Yeah, you can be a bit more like tough. Or cheering up. You can also you can sing a bit together. Like you do Pomodoro, and every 25 minutes you have 5-minute singing break or something like this. Okay, I think that's how it actually should be. But there's this internet study with me. And then I also saw in Japan, I'm smiling a bit because from Japan there are quite a few interesting things coming. I've never been in Japan, but I love Japan. I really love Japan. I think I might not really love it if I'm there, yeah, because some things about the culture that I heard I think would be a bit more difficult. Like these things about like that they don't really say directly no, but there's always a bit like how we say through the flower. But fair enough, why not? I think the language is one of the most beautiful languages, like from how it sounds, and obviously I love the Akira Kurosawa movies. Yes, I was about to say I love the samurai, but then I thought, I'm not sure if I really love the samurai, but I love the Akira Kurosawa movies. Okay, so in Japan, there is this guy, there's at least one, probably there are more, and you can rent him to accompany you. So he's not doing anything, like he's pretty silent, like he can go with you to a restaurant, for example. Yeah. He accompanies you there. He's not annoying. He just sits and he just also eats. And if you say something, he will also say something. He will answer, but he will, in that sense, not be proactive. So he's pretty unannoying in that sense. But what an interesting phenomenon, no? That people they don't have friends to go with them to the restaurant. And in this video that I watched where it's about this guy, they said that they do have friends and so on, but they don't have friends to go to this restaurant together. Okay, so they just rent this guy because they also don't want to go alone and blah 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 blah. Okay, you see, it's a bit interesting phenomena, but these are the things that happen nowadays. Yeah, loneliness. This is all connected to loneliness. And as I said in the beginning, and now I want to come to this, one part that is creating this loneliness, I think, besides that people are, let's say, acting wrongly, like their social skills are lacking, you could say, on one hand, but also their mindset is polluted, that they are struggling with the ability to connect with people deeply. But one thing is how our environment is shaped, because what's very common nowadays is that you have a separation of your home, of your work, and your, let's say, recreational activities. And you can call this first place, second place, and third place. That's from some sort of philosopher, not philosopher or sociologist. To find that in my notes. Where? Ray Oldenburg. That's the name. Okay, apparently this is from him. This with the 3 places. But it's, I mean, you don't have to be a genius to to come up with this. Actually, I came up with it before I heard about this Ray Oldenburg guy. Ha ha ha. Yes, it's true. Okay, so the first place is your home. Yeah, and this is where you have your family. Okay, if you have a family, or you live together with another person in a WG, in a Fletcher, yeah, or with your parents, or whatever. And then the second place is your work. So this is where you meet other people than at home. Yeah, you meet these people that you're working with. That's your working community. And then the third place is, these are things like bars or gyms or parks or stores, or where you meet third kind of people that you're doing things with together, or at least you have the possibility of interacting. And so like this, many people have three different communities. They have their family that they're doing stuff with, and then they go to, let's say they go to meet their gym buddies and they do stuff with them. And then they have people that they're working with, and not necessarily the people that they work with, they want to meet after work. Some people don't like it. They don't want to like have this like together, like to have it the same community. They don't want to mix it. Yeah, they want to separate it. And other people maybe just work with people together that they don't really like. But in let's say again in this mythical natural setting, they would be all very connected to each other. No, because you're not like going somewhere super far to do your work. Yeah, like today, where many people go somewhere for like 1 hour with the train or the car and go like for 20 kilometers away. Yeah, so there would be usually mean a 4-hour work, 4-hour walk, not work. Yeah, so that would be unlikely that people go every day 4 hours there and 4 hours back. Obviously, treks also happen in a more natural setting, that people are going from here to there, but such longer commutes of 20 kilometers every day, I mean, some people commute for 100 kilometers every day or more, would be relatively uncommon in communities that are Stone Age. Yeah, and there would also the people that you do stuff with that could be considered work, like going on to a hunt or foraging or building a new hut or tent or something like this. And most likely the people would not so differ from the people that then you sing with in the evening and dance and talk with. Yeah, so I assume, without being an anthropologist and without like knowing too much about, just through a bit my logic, that nowadays this separation that we have of something that has not been separated that much, and especially where our possibilities of travel through combustion engines, electricity, and so on have very much increased, that this is playing also a key role in loneliness. What we have in many cities is this forced separation of work and living, especially when it comes to working class homes. Yeah, if we look at the work of Corbusier or Walter Gropius, yeah, people that have built this, what Corbusier calls, I think he calls it living machines or something like this. Yeah, so they created the possibility for many people to live in the city. They created these big apartment buildings and so on, and these districts that have these big apartment buildings. But then actually, some years later, what turns out is that in these areas, there's very little work. So people need to travel somewhere to do their work, and there's very little infrastructure as well. Very close to where I live is actually exactly something like this. For me, it's a 30-minute walk, so it's just a few kilometers away. What we call in German Schlafsiedlung, like sleeping settlement. Yeah, so where people, where there's nothing to do in a sense. I mean, it's relatively far out, so it's easy to go into nature in that sense, but also it's not that you are close to a nice lake or to wonderful forest, because then probably something else would have been built, some villas or something like that. But you have these places that are usually also not very beautiful, like concrete blocks where there is usually a train going there, but the public transport in general is also not the greatest. It's like one train line, if it's broken, you are in trouble. So actually many people there have a car because the possibilities to get around are not so good. People anyway are not so affluent. Yeah, but they need to have a car because no one takes care of public transport properly. Like, it's just not viewed as so, funnily, as so important over there by the planners. And people are going every day somewhere else into the city, travel 1 hour in crowded S-Bahns, and then they go home. And then there's almost no restaurant, there's no shops besides a supermarket, and a drugstore, and there are parks. Actually, there's a very nice park now, but it also is, let's say, relatively new. For many years there was nothing, so there are now nice nature park possibilities in that sense. But if you are there, you get the feeling of, I don't want to live here. There's not much going on. And in my area, there's also not much going on. And that could be because I live in a bit of a suburban area. And that's also what happens in the countryside, in what is called suburbia, that there's not much infrastructure to meet people. So what happens in a suburban environment where people have their houses, there is actually very little use of playgrounds. There are maybe playgrounds, but people are not using it so much because everyone has a playground in their garden. So if you live in the city center and you have no playground, obviously in your home, because you just have an apartment, you don't have a garden, you are much more likely to go out and meet other parents and kids when you're going always to the same playground. I'm not sure if it really works like this, but that's how I imagine it if you live more in the city. Whereas here, where I live, you go also to the playground, but it's not so much of a thing that every day at the same time they're the same kids, let's say. And also here, the distance between playgrounds are further. Like, especially like where I live, the next playground on foot is 15 minutes, but that's really not a great playground. Like, no one is ever there because it's so boring. And then the playgrounds that are better, they take more like 25 minutes to walk to, which is obviously with a small kid like something that is a bit of a travel, or then you go by bike, blah 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 blah, but it's not that you go out and then 5-minute walk. There's a playground. And on the countryside it's the same, because with the countryside you have the thing that maybe you live in the village and there are little people, and the connection might be more to other people, but there are several problems. Because one problem is that you are maybe not fitting in. As I said, like, people are not interested in dragons, but it can be really on a less special level. Like, people really have their beliefs. Maybe you are let's say you're an atheist and you go to a village and everyone is super religious. And in the city that won't happen in the problem, because the city is so diverse, and this is why many people go to the city. So the nice thing about the city is you will always find people that are like-minded if you search for them, and they will be more or less in reach depending on the public transport situation in the city, like talking about European cities. In in the village that might not be the case. Okay, and another thing is that in the village there might be very little third places. So there's places where people meet. If you are lucky, or maybe if you set something up yourself, there is a meeting spot in your village, where people watch together, like movies, for example, maybe like a private cinema, or there's this one restaurant or bar where people meet, and so on and so forth. So like every village actually needs a third place where people meet together, so people are not just there with their own family and then they actually work somewhere else, because people that live in the village, if they're not farmers, they mostly work then a bit away. Maybe they need to go to the city, or they work on the computer or something like this. So you need a third place, and you need third places close to you. They shouldn't be so far. This is the problem that people in suburban and rural environments have. They don't have third places close by. Whereas the people in the city, in a sense, have a different problem, that often there are too many third places, and that separates the people of your community very much. And this is what's happening when people say, okay, on Wednesday, I'm going to yoga. On a Friday, I'm going to this movement class. They don't commit to a third place. And that creates loneliness. If they're not committing to a third place, that creates loneliness. And the separation of these places, it is also a problem, I think, that there are actually first, second, and third place that are so separated. So separated that you go 1 hour to your work, then you go 1 hour back, blah, blah, blah. You have your people, then you go 30 minutes to the gym. You have other people there, but everyone has their own schedule, and sometimes you meet someone, sometimes you don't meet anyone that you know. Because why am I actually talking about loneliness? In case you wonder, in case you have no idea why this is a thing, is that we humans, so I'm also explaining this for psychopaths here, because maybe a psychopath is listening. Everyone can listen, also if you have no understanding of why you would connect to other people, that's okay. Like if that's at least as long as you are a moral and good person, that's completely fine. If that's your thing, not to connect. But for most people, that's very important, and we live in close relationship with each other, and other people also make us better people, especially if we help each other to do the right thing. If we are, in a sense, critical to each other, remind ourselves of things, then things like our practice will be better. Our relationships are fundamentally, in a sense, our world experience. Our experience to other people, our connection to other people, our relationship to other people, our relationship to what is surrounding you, like to the nature, to the things around us. This is, you could say, basically this is how we experience the world. What is there is our relationship, our connections. Trivia, maybe a bit, is that when people are lonely, their mortality is higher than people that are not lonely. And it makes sense, because we are living also from being needed in the world. This is a life force that helps us to be alive. If you feel you need to do something, or you are needed in this world, you will be less sick. You will probably live longer. And I think to this is also connected that people that are more rich usually have better health than people that are, let's say, at the bottom of society. It's not just that they can afford better health insurance and that maybe they're more educated and they know more about health, but it's also something that they feel, it seems like I'm important in society because people are giving me money. Although that can be a superficial thing in a society where what you extract from society is not necessarily what you put in society, because there are many people with a lot of money. If their thing, what they do, would disappear from the world wouldn't change at all. Yeah, because the product that they offer is shit, is nonsense. Okay, but there is a higher mortality in people that feel lonely, and obviously this is also something to think about with older people. And so what is happening is that we are getting older and older. Let's see. Yeah, we might reach the peak in some countries. Actually, I think in the US it actually went a bit down again. But definitely we're getting older than 100 years ago. And we have, in countries like Germany, we have this thing that in the 1960s, there were many, many people born, especially in 1964. That's the year with the most births. And then it dropped after this. Yeah, like we got richer. There was, we needed, I don't know. It just dropped. Yeah, how it happens when countries get richer and the population thing is done. And So now we have the problem that soon, like let's say in 10 years, there will be more, like it's starting now already, but it will increase. The problem is that there will be so many retired people compared to people that are working, that it will be actually a thing. How do you supply these people? Like food is unlikely that it will be an issue, I would say. But what is very likely that it will be an issue is care, for example, because we are already have huge problems to give enough care to people that are old, and that will be in 10 years. Let's see what happens. Like from how it sounds now, it will be a disaster. So what people are thinking about is to let people work longer before they retire. And on the one hand, that sounds like a bit of breaking a promise, to say, okay, at this age you are retiring. And there are many jobs where it's just impossible. If you're very hard laboring worker, let's say you are a miner, something that is, I think not really happen. Are there miners in Germany? Not even sure. Like real miners, that work with their muscular force, not the people that are just driving some big things. I don't know. But let's say there are miners, they cannot work until they're 70. Yeah, there is a limit to this. Just impossible to work longer. Yeah, like your body will be too broken. But there are jobs when you can work for a longer time if the person stays healthy, and not just in the body, but also in the mind. Yeah. And now there's the question, okay, because first the people are retiring at 62. Now it's 67. Shall we go up to 70? And then what happens after? Are we going even higher and higher and higher? And there is a positive thing about the notion of working longer, because it means also that you're still used from society. And from what I heard in Japan, again, we are talking about Japan. Is there anyone from Japan listening to this? So then you can tell me if I'm talking complete nonsense. But from what I heard about Japan is that this is already happening, that older people work, like they just continue to work because there's no one else that can do their job. There's just not enough other people that can do their job. And I think maybe it's also connected to this Japanese thing where there's a lot this sense of duty. Yeah, and it reminds me also of the documentary Jiro Dreams of Sushi. Very, very interesting documentary. where he's also like already a high age. I mean, creators anyway usually don't really stop working, no? Like artists, or Jiro's also in that sense an artist. They don't stop, like, why would they stop working? Like, there's nothing, like, this is what they want to do. They want to do this. They don't want to retire and sit on a beach and sip on something. They just want to continue to work. But there are people that don't want to continue to work. And then there is the question, okay, yeah, fair enough. Like, you earned that you don't need to work anymore for money. And at the same time, it often means also that then people take care of, for example, their enkel. What is the English word? The sons of the children of the children. Oh, I forgot. Yeah. Okay. So they take their duty as a grandfather or grandmother, or they do some other community service. Yeah, that they're still participating in a positive way. But whatever it is, like some sort of participation in society is definitely keeping up the health of the people. Yeah. If someone feels like they're not needed anymore, then mortality goes up. So maybe also something to think about when we think about our grandparents or our parents, and if they're dear to us, to, let's say, monitor this a bit, how well they are still integrated in society and how well they're part of the family and of what's happening. Okay, let's try to wrap it up. So we have the thing that people seem to sometimes lose themselves in digital connections. Yeah, finding the community of people that like dragons, two friends sitting next to each other in the park, both on the phone. This classical picture. Yeah, people have this fear of missing out. Some people, there's so many things happening in the internet world that it sometimes feels like, you need to always look for what is there, looking for better options, like swiping on Tinder. There you can swipe, I don't know, left, right, up, down, middle. I don't know what you can do there, but there's this thing, that you swipe and then you see a yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. What a bit perverted system, no? Very perverted. Like, if you think about it, how is this possible that this became a thing where people are really doing this? You see a picture. Is it like this, that you see a picture and then you swipe if you like the picture or not? Like, it's just this image that you like, and then it takes one split second for you to decide, and you always look for better options there on Tinder, like what a vicious cycle, not to meet someone in the real world, and that's whom you meet, and then you try to sort it out. Not always it works, and then you search again, but you need to commit yourself, at least to some extent, for some time, to figure out if there's something there or not. And that goes for relationships, and that goes also for work, for practice as well. I feel very lucky that I was in a school where I stayed on the same school for 12 years. Yeah, because very often you change the school, Like, you start somewhere and then you change to another school. Weird, no? Why is it like this? Like, first everyone is in the same school and then you separate them. You separate them because some are a bit smarter and then some are not so smart. So there are different schools. Okay, makes sense to some extent, I guess. Because I definitely, we were very mixed, and I felt a problem that I had was that in some things I was relatively quick to understand, and then my motivation fell it really fell to the core of the earth, because it just took so long until everyone, like the slowest, was getting it. This was especially in mathematics. That I think some sort of separation in skills makes sense. I guess there can be different ways to do this, but why not have this actually all in one place still, so you don't separate like after grade 4 or grade 6 the people, and you have completely different new mixes. Like, I consider myself really so lucky that I was 12 years with the same people in the school, and with this, the bonds were strong, like obviously not to everyone, but to some people so strong that I really felt this was why I was going to school still, because there was time when I really didn't like it, the part of that I have to go there, but just to see my people there every day, it's like a family, and even though like there were people that I really like didn't like there was no one that I disliked completely. Like, everyone was sort of okay, but there were people that where I feel like, okay, if I never see them again in my life, really doesn't matter. But still, it was very strong, like with the people that I was in school. So this is actually something that I'm searching for my kids as well, to see, to look that they can go somewhere where they're not separated after these years, but they create these connections that from there will automatically be a lifelong connection if you spend this important 12 years or 13 years or whatever it is together. Loneliness. Good. Okay. The third place, something to consider. Third places where we meet. Commit to places. Let's commit ourselves to other people, to other places, and bind ourselves also to say, hey, every Tuesday evening we are going there to the gym together. Yeah, our group of 3 or whatever. We go there. Blah, blah, blah. Or whatever it is. Yeah, whatever it is that you are interested in, that you have people to do with, but to really say, this is what I'm doing. A bit like my grandfather, up to Corona, he had this meeting with his friends, yeah, where they met together every week on the same day at the same time, and he told me, now with Corona they probably missed some, but he told me he never missed a single meeting for 20 years. He never missed a single meeting. That's strong, no? Like, it doesn't need to be such extreme, but I felt like that's impressive. That's really commitment. It's really commitment. Yeah. This is what I'm doing every time, this day of the week, this time I am at this place. I am at this third place with my people. Less fear, guys. Less fear of binding, of being there, of being happy with your option that you have, committing yourself and actually creating strong relationships with people. And this is how you are not lonely. Be there, and be there for years. Yeah, don't disappear all the time. All right. Thank you very much for listening. And I remind that the people that make this happen here are the people that train with us, that commit to our work, and that support us on Patreon. Yeah, these are the people that make this happen here. These are the people that have financed the equipment that I'm working with. Yeah, that have financed my food that I put into my mouth. All right, so consider being one of them. Ciao.